Namaskar, everybody. Today we are going to explore something that is very important and very personal for so many people. We're going to break down the real difference, excuse me, the real difference here between PTSD and CPTSD. And this not just from a Western clinical perspective, although we will cover some of that, but through the lens of Ayurvedic psychology, and then go even deeper into how meditation becomes a powerful tool, not a luxury, but a necessity in healing both of these conditions. I know this video may be very lengthy, but if you're someone living with trauma, if you're someone living with trauma, or supporting someone who is, or just wanting to understand this terrain in a more profound and holistic way, just stay with me here. Let's just walk through this together. So let's begin with PTSD. This is post-traumatic stress disorder. So most people associate this with soldiers or those who have gone through violent events. Originally, it was coined from, it was called shell shock. Okay, and there's a whole series. If you want to read a little bit more about this, there's a wonderful book called, I believe it's In Sheep's Clothing. Anyways. I'll leave the name of the book and the author in some of the comments here, right? So it was originally associated with soldiers or people with gone through these violent events, car accidents, natural disasters, and that's really accurate. So PTSD, it typically arises from a single or limited set of life-threatening or deeply disturbing events, singular, right? Typically. So the nervous system, which is designed to respond to this acute danger, it gets kind of locked in a hyper alert mode and it's unable to return to a baseline. Okay? So symptoms with this, and you'll see across the board, hypervigilance, nightmares, flashbacks, intrusive memories, avoidance behavior, emotional numbness, disassociation at points as well. So the body, mind, and breath are all caught in a loop of past experience as if the danger is still present now. So in Ayurveda, this is understood to be a profound vata imbalance. So vata being the dosha associated with movement, right? The nervous system, pranic flow. So when vata becomes aggravated, it creates instability in the mind and body. And in PTSD, and this prana, right, the life force itself, it's scattered and disorganized. And the trauma, it lives in the nervous system. So there's channels of the mind, and they become blocked, they become erratic, especially in subtle levels. Excuse me. So the ojas, this is this subtle essence of immunity and this emotional resilience. It's depleted here. So the person lives with fear, with confusion, and with this emotional fragility. Okay. Now, let's look at CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's different here. It doesn't arise from one event. It arises from prolonged exposure to trauma. So a series of events, prolonged exposure, like emotional neglect, psychological manipulation, chronic abuse, growing up in an unsafe household. So being in a toxic relationship where your sense of self was constantly eroded, right? So whereas PTSD is like kind of like a lightning strike, CPTSD is a slow erosion of the foundation of the self. It impacts not just the nervous system, but also the very formation of identity, of relationship to self, and capacity for this healthy emotional regulations. So symptoms with this include emotional dysregulation, chronic shame and guilt. Remember, these are across the board with this. Difficulty trusting others, deep-seated beliefs of unworthiness, a fragmented sense of self, and this constant feeling of being unsafe or unlovable. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, CPTSD often involves all three doshas. Vata for the instability, Pitta for the inner critic and this burning shame, and Kapha for the depressive states and the disassociation. So the entire system, body, mind, and these subtle energetic fields, it's compromised. The ahamkara, this is the sense of self, has been deeply wounded here because of the prolonged exposure to the trauma. So the trauma isn't just in memory here, it's embedded in the formation of the psyche. So we can see how much different CPTSD is here, although there are shared similarities. So with modern neurobiology, it shows us something really fascinating here, and this is that trauma changes the structure of the brain. Okay? The amygdala, it becomes hyperactive, and the hippocampus, it shrinks, and the prefrontal cortex, this is the part that's responsible for reasoning and perspective, it becomes underactive. So the amygdala, the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response centers of the brain are overactive, okay? Right? So for PTSD, this means the system is caught in a loop of re-experiencing and avoiding. For CPTSD, it means the very structure of perception has become distorted by chronic emotional injury. And that's just been shaped and forged into the individual through that prolonged exposure. Excuse me. So there's recent research that shows mindfulness and meditation practices can actually reverse these structural changes. This is fascinating, and I'll leave some links to the studies as well. So there's studies from Harvard and Stanford, and they show that these consistently meditating, it increases gray matter in the hippocampus and decreases the density of the amygdala. Think about that, right? Decreasing the density of the amygdala. This means that fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response, it becomes diminished, right? So in essence here, meditation literally rebuilds the parts of the brain that trauma damages. So this means that there's more of an ability to function within that space of the prefrontal cortex, which is reasoning and perspective. So we can add better reasoning skills and a deeper, more broad perspective, right? Because this CPTSD, this limits the perspective. It narrows one's view of things. It almost makes things black or white. And from the Ayurvedic perspective, meditation, it's not some kind of luxury. It is medicine. Period. Okay? It's a practice that strengthens ojas, that pacifies the vata and reestablishes the natural flow of prana through the nadis, right, and the srotas. So these are these mental propensities and these energetic points in the body. Okay? And if you'd like some more information on that, I can give much, much more. But when you sit in stillness here and observe the breath, or what I teach is mantra, and focus on mantra, this inner I am presence, you are resetting the nervous system, okay? So you're focusing on this inner I am presence, right? With mantra. you're learning how to cleanse those mental channels. You are creating a safe internal environment, and that's the only place healing can begin. Healing is not going to begin if you don't have a safe internal healing environment for yourself. It has to be developed. You have to take the steps. If you're watching this and you're undergoing PTSD or CPTSD, there has to be a sense of safety within yourself. Okay? So in trauma, they've lost connection to the present moment. And meditation is the art of becoming present. Not to bypass pain, right? Not to suppress anything, not to regress, but to meet it from the stillness that is untouched. So for PTSD, meditation helps by teaching the nervous system how to return to rest. It deactivates the sympathetic nervous system and activates the parasympathetic. So in yoga, we know this, right? This is taught quite a bit. So this is the state, this parasympathetic system, this is the state of digestion, rest, and repair. We want to be able to access that. And the more we practice and develop this safe space within ourselves through meditation, the more we can get into that space. So this vata, right, this constant movement, over movement, it begins to calm, and breath deepens. Prana begins to move evenly. The person starts to realize they are not the trauma. They are the awareness within which that trauma arises. And this is a profound shift for the individual, not just as an intellectual exercise. They have to practice this in order to embody and remember it. So even 10 to 15 minutes a day of seated meditation, breath awareness, mantra, this can really begin to soften this reactive loop, right? This internal rigidity. It softens. We begin to understand self-compassion. And with consistency, the brain, it literally starts to rewire. The sense of inner safety, it increases here. Now, the CPTSD is more complex, right? Complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The person may not have a solid sense of self to return there, or so they perceive. Okay? There may be these chronic inner voices of shame, guilt, and unworthiness. And there's just a little bit different of approach here. So meditation though here, it's a gentle, but it's this revolutionary act here. It allows the person to witness those voices, not identify with them, witness them, like passing clouds in the sky. The sky is you. You are the awareness of this unlimited sky. Not the blueness, the sky. When we look up at nighttime and we see the night sky, it's vast and it seems endless. That's you, all right? The sky, or the cloud, which is passing by, is not you. It's a visitor, right? And these voices of shame, of guilt, right? They're not you. You learn to not identify with them. You learn to not believe them. You just sit with them as movements of the mind, as these passing clouds. It may seem simple to hear. Try it though. It's really difficult, especially with CPTSD, for individuals to not get entangled and enmeshed with those clouds and become incredibly reactive. And it's okay to do that. It's okay. Be forgiving with yourself. Understand that you are not that. That's where it starts. Even if you come back to it later and say, that wasn't me, that was me confusing myself for that passing visitor. Next time I'll try a little more. And each time that we recognize it, we become closer and closer and closer in real time to the event, until finally we're able to stand back and we say, oh, this is here. I feel it in my body and in my mind. And I feel the chaos. I feel the confusion. I feel the distortion. But I'm not that. And you just let it pass. You still feel it. It's still there. And then, over time of doing that, it just comes and goes without a bother. It's quite a beautiful process. And it's not suppressing. It's just witnessing and recognizing. So in Ayurvedic terms, we're returning and restoring sattva. This is the quality of clarity and peace. And over time, with the right support, the fragmented psyche begins to cohere. The person slowly discovers an inner self that was never broken ever. It was just buried. It was buried under pain, suffering, sadness, neglect, shame, guilt. And sometimes that can feel really heavy. And if you've been through a lot, of course it feels heavy. Be forgiving with yourself. So practices like yoga, mantra, japa, pranayama, these are breathing exercises. Anyways, I'll discuss these a little more in another video too. They become really useful here. If you have CPTSD and PTSD, I would not recommend pranayama or breathing exercises without the guidance of somebody, because it can really increase vata and it can cause more problems in the mind. So these practices, they can rebuild this inner ojas, and they can really strengthen the heart. So how do you start? And you start with simplicity. Just sit quietly for 10 minutes a day. Place your hand on your heart and breathe into your belly. Okay? Just feel yourself here. Just feel yourself. Just start simple. I would use a mantra. I would use, it's called Bhavanam Kevalam. Breathing in. Mentally, we only say this. Mentally, when we breathe in through the nose, we say Bhavanam. And as we breathe out through the nose, mentally we say Kevalam. This could mean love is all there is. Consciousness is all there is. Okay? And from there, add gentle movement. Gentle movement. Slow, intentional yoga. Don't push yourself too far, right? Practice Abhyanga. Abhyanga is a self-oil massage. It helps calm vata. You want to use the right kind of oils. So if you want to move in with things, reach out to me, contact me, and I'll give you a dosha assessment so you can understand where you are, and I can give you the right kind of oil recommendations for yourself so you're not causing more harm. So, and I think this is most importantly here, be kind to yourself. Healing isn't linear. Some days you're going to feel light. Other days you're going to feel pulled under. And that's okay. That's okay. Just stay the course. Every time you recognize, oh, I was pulled under here. Oh, I got caught up in XYZ. Oh, okay. Wow, I'm aware of that. Let's remain in that space of awareness. Trauma is not who you are. It's what happened. Your true nature, which is Atman, it's untouched by trauma. But to rediscover that, it takes time, patience, guidance, and courage here. So Ayurveda and meditation, they don't replace therapy here. Don't think that. But they are powerful allies in healing. So they restore your system from the inside out. And you're not alone. You're not broken. Healing is possible here. Okay? So let's move deeper into the path of this sustained healing, now that we've looked at that. So once a person begins a regular and consistent, this is very important. If you want results, there needs to be consistency. Imagine going to the gym and you want to have more toned body. And you go once a week for 20 minutes. Sure, you're doing something, but you're not going to achieve your goal. Okay, right? You need consistency. You need a plan. You need a goal. Without a goal, we may have some practices, some inspiration and some insights, but we don't know where we're heading. We might be heading in circles and loops, and we need a goal, and we need to make that goal very big for ourselves, so that every small goal that we have is in alignment with that larger goal. So one thing we practice is yoga nidra. So this is a state of conscious, deep rest. So in this practice, the body is relaxed while the mind remains alert. And it allows trauma that's stored in the subtle nervous system to be accessed and released without re-traumatization, okay? Without re-traumatizing ourselves. This is really great. Like studies with this show, it balances the autonomic nervous system and it reduces cortisol levels. So the cortisol is associated with it as high amounts of stress, right? And it increases theta brainwaves. And this theta brainwaves are associated with deep healing. Put all this together, right? So another powerful tool is mantra. So it's the repetition of the sacred sound. And for mantra, like I said, repeat even through your day, breathing in through your nose. Baba Nam, out, Kevalam. Just do this. Focus on it. Focus, focus. So from an Ayurvedic and Tantric standpoint, mantra has vibrational potency to cleanse the chakras and repattern samskaras. So samskaras are these deep mental impressions. And the use of mantras like that, Baba Nam Kevalam, it helps direct the prana into damaged or stagnant areas of the consciousness, because it's with repetition, right? You're repeating it over and over and over and over. And what happens when you repeat something to yourself over and over and over? It becomes a tendency, a habit. So by repeating this Baba Nam Kevalam, we're implanting and planting these seeds and tendencies within ourselves. Love is all there is. Love is all there is. Consciousness is all there is, right? So another thing here we want to look at is understanding in trauma, and especially complex trauma. Excuse me. The energy body, the pranamaya kosha, it's deeply impacted. So prana may become blocked in the lower chakras due to this fear, the shame, and helplessness, or perceived helplessness at this point, right? So the fear, the shame, and the helplessness, they arise within the self, but that's not aligned with who you are. They're past impressions which are lingering. So meditation and breath work should be tailored to slowly awaken and purify these chakras, okay? The Muladhara, the root chakra. We focus on these grounding practices, this earth connection, safety, affirmations. Svadhisthana, this is the sacral chakra. We want water therapy, expressive movement, healing touch, emotional journaling. The Manipura, this is the navel. This is core strengthening, digestive herbs, fire gazing. This helps restore this personal power. And they're very subtle things that we can do for ourselves. And they're not quick fixes, okay? It's not a magic pill. It's not something... You may feel very inspired when you first start doing these things, but it's going to even out, okay? It needs to be consistent practices with that larger goal. And that larger goal, it should be huge. It should be like this total self-realization of understanding oneself as the infinite itself, right? Something like this, because these smaller goals and steps are leading us to that large goal. It's very important to have a goal for ourselves. Otherwise, like I said, we're just going to wander and hope that we get somewhere that we haven't defined, right? So these aren't quick fixes. They're a way of rebuilding the energy infrastructure that was damaged by this trauma. So I've worked with individuals who experience severe PTSD after physical assaults and prolonged life, right? The people who have developed CPTSD after years in a narcissistic household and abusive relationships. And what I've seen is this. Once a person begins treating trauma, not just psychologically, but energetically and spiritually, some real transformation begins here. One woman, for example, began with guided meditation and yoga nidra. So then added abhyanga and consistent mantra. And within 6 months, she described feeling like she finally had a home inside herself. Right? This sense of confusion, this chaos, this inner turmoil, these thoughts, these intrusive emotional states, they held back. And there was a sense of home, a sense of peace, right? The story, another young man that I worked with CPTSD from emotional abuse began with just something simple like candle gazing and this very gentle breath work, very, very gentle and very slow. And I would, nature immersion, just walking through nature, right? It shifts the mind because of these new habits and these new tendencies. So the mind starts to reinterpret what is happening because of these valued actions, okay? And slowly his inner dialogue, it began to soften. Okay, he began writing again, laughing again, feeling like he was worthy enough for people. And the stories here, like, they're real and they take time, but they reaffirm what Ayurveda has always known, is that the soul cannot be broken. It's not a possibility. It's only covered. And healing is the art of uncovering. If you watched this far, thank you. My hope is that you leave with more information. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I will leave my email where you can reach out to me. And I hope you leave with inspiration and permission to begin again, permission to care for yourself deeply, to reclaim your stillness. So meditation and Ayurveda, they don't promise an escape from pain, but they reveal the self that is beyond it. And from that ground of being, everything becomes possible. Namaskar.